Ladies and gentlemen, we need your help. We are hosting an idea gauntlet to pick our next game. Here's what's happening. We're gonna pick our top 3 ideas, and from there, we'll isolate it to pick one idea that we're gonna work on full time. We have 2 ideas already. I'm not gonna tell you what they are. Secret, they're not automation games. But the last idea we haven't picked, and we need your help. We have 3 automation game ideas, and we want you to hear our pitches and then vote on them. I'm gonna show you each pitches. They're short, and we're just gonna get you to vote. Okay, here we go. Game number 1 is Colossus Caretaker, Biological Automation. It's a factory game similar to Factorio or Cosmeteer. If you don't know what that is, you automate ships and do battle. The goal of the game is to keep the internals running efficiently so your host can live a happy and healthy life. The art style we're going for is probably like Factorio but brighter, or Wandering Village where it's 3D with a mix of 2D but all mostly static. And the camera's going to be top down, similar to Factorio, but with a little bit of a twist. The game, from birth to death, you are forever reliant on the maw, an endangered creature desperate to survive. Despite being microscopic, you and your team run the body. From blood cells, the heart, and the lungs, they all run at optimal efficiency because of you. You live in a perfect symbiotic relationship with the maw. So you're inside, you can see down there, that's you. Your goal is to automate the internals. Now, there are multiple organs in the maw. Each of them have different functions. Now, just suspend your disbelief and pretend that I had spent the time to do concept art, but obviously it's an elephant, but you get where I'm going at. Here's the idea. Each of the organs is sort of like a little base that you can build your automation. For example, in the heart, oxygen comes in and you must produce healthy blood cells and ship them out. So a piece of gameplay might look like blood comes in, kind of like Atrio with their little packages. You have to automate them, and then they replenish, you heal them, you generate fresh blood cells, you get rid of the old ones, and you have to ship them out, and there's an input rate and an output rate, and depending on your efficiency, it changes the stats of the creature. So this is sort of what some UI might look like. Wandering Village was a big inspiration for this. If you don't know what Wandering Village is, you build a village on top of a giant creature. Obviously, this would be inside of the giant creature. But you kind of get the idea. You can see the creature, you can see how it's doing, its stats, its sleep, et cetera, and you can help control it. Now, you can go to other parts of the body, like the lungs. So here, you would replenish blood cells with oxygen. You'd have to put out carbon dioxide, obviously with the flavor of automation in all of this. Another example of an organ would be you would filter out toxins that helps heal the muscles and helps grow, and they eat bad stuff. You got to make sure it doesn't hurt the body. Now, like any automation game, a big part is progress. So when you earn energy or calories that come in at a constant rate, you have to spend some of it, but you can save some of it depending on how efficient you are. And you can use that to get small upgrades. That's for you and your team of workers, like better factories, better conveyor belts, more storage, more placement, all the standard stuff that we have sort of in Atrio as well. But then you get big upgrades. This is to develop new organs or to grow your organs just like you would be if you were a baby growing up to an adult. You get more space. It becomes more powerful. You can pump more blood. You get more inputs and outputs. You get stronger lungs, bigger heart, stronger muscles. Part of this is all about growing your creature. So obviously, if you're a tiny little baby, you're not going to have a lot of space. You have to be really efficient with your space. But as you grow, your creature grows. So you get more space to play with. Eventually, you'll start to get attacked by other creatures. You'll have to fight off illness, repair cuts and bruises and scrapes. And you'll have to grow body parts to fight back, like claws, teeth, maybe a heart shell. The goal of the game is to survive long enough to find a partner and start the life cycle all over again. Obviously, we're going to keep it safe for work. There's no not safe for work stuff. But the idea is you have to prep an additional quote unquote vessel or baby with the exact same materials that you started with. Sort of like a kind of new game plus. And so when it's done, you can start all over again. And that is Colossus Caretaker. Aquatomation is a deep sea factory builder. Very similar to all the other automation games, but this time it's under the sea, and the goal is to mine the sea. Art style we're going for is kind of a low poly, like Dredge, if you've heard of it. It just came out, maybe Surviving the Abyss or Aquatico. The camera's going to be third person. The assets will be in 3D. And the premise of the game is a signal from the bottom of the ocean calls you, promising untold riches. You have to start your mining company and make your fortune from the sea. Here's the general idea is there are multiple depths to the ocean. So the relationship is really about the surface level of the ocean. There's really no exploring or driving a boat around or driving a submarine. It's really about exploring the base of the ocean and building your automation. Once you sort of conquer each layer, you move it down to a lower layer that has more challenges. Obviously, pressure and oxygen are going to play a big part of this. Light is going to be a big part of this. And obviously, it gets a lot more dangerous when it gets lower. So on this first floor, the surface level, you have to harvest resources and pump them to the surface. We were thinking you'd be a guy in one of those old school traditional scuba suits with a big hat so you can walk around and you got a big pipe of oxygen all the way up to the top. Now you pipe those to the surface, and on the surface, you gather the resources and process them. From that, you can sell the resources and buy new upgrades, include factories and upgrades to your factories where you work faster, kind of standard upgrade process. You also unlock the ability to go deeper and travel faster underwater, etc., etc. So obviously you can upgrade based on the surface. There's more advantages to being on the surface because boats can run around and you won't have to figure out logistics. You can just say, hey, boat, go pick this up, go do this, go do that. So being on the surface has its advantages, but you can't access the resources until you go deeper. So when you go deeper, there's a twist. You discover there are no resources under the water. Instead, there are these mysterious shrines that demand blood. So in exchange for that, you get these mythical, interesting, very rare, and expensive resources. So it asks for blood. You can catch fish as a sacrifice. Now, again, this is not you controlling the character. You build like fisheries that go and just automatically gather at a certain output. It's very much a factory game. But you can go and you can catch fish, and you can catch larger fish, smaller fish, depending on your efficiencies in your factories. But that's not enough. You have to keep going deeper because the signal keeps calling you. Build your empire with blood and grow your factory until you reach the bottom. So there's this interesting concept of sending resources up to the different levels and processing them differently, setting them up, setting them down. Obviously, eventually with the twist, you're going to be doing a lot of catching of fish. Maybe you have to sacrifice employees. We haven't got that far, just a pitch. But the source of the signal has an insatiable appetite. Satisfy it or perish. So, kind of a Cthulhu mysterious factory building game that includes water where you're traversing up and down. Obviously not a lot of swimming, but a lot of walking on the surface and building these epic factories, dealing with pressure, and also the mythic element of the underwater Cthulhu signal, whatever that is. Mine the Mountain, another automation game, but this time on a mountain. Again, similar to most factory games like Satisfactory, Factorio, obviously Atrio, where the goal is to reach the top of the mountain. The art style we're going for, we haven't decided, but we're sort of thinking either low poly or kind of like Laysara Summon Kingdom. It's a little bit more high fidelity graphics, definitely in 3D. This whole thing is certainly going to be in 3D. The camera is going to be third person. Here's the premise. Legend has it an undiscovered ore lies at the top of the mountain, but no dwarf has ever reached the top until now. Here's the mountain. Sort of imagine an actual mountain. I just drew this so you would get an illustration of what I'm talking about. Imagine a mountain with several biomes. Each of those biomes presents a different challenge. Obviously, in the beginning, it's not going to have any coldness level. There'll be tons of vegetation, lots of stuff to do without too much hindering you. But as you go up higher, coldness level becomes a factor, and that's going to hurt you, damage you over time, unless you deal with it or have heaters, and it's going to stop your factories. As you go further, maybe there'll be clouds with low visibility. Maybe there'll be lightning strikes that strike randomly at you until you deal with it with, lightning rods or build a suit that's lightning resistance. But the reason you want to go up to the top of the mountain is as you go higher, there are more rare ores for you to discover. Here's the basic loop of how it would work. Imagine this is the very, very base of the mountain, the start of the game. The goal is for you to reach an ore, and then find a way to move it over to a smelter and then drop it into a depot. Now you can build multiple depots. They'll be all over the place, as many as you want to place, but dropping specific ores into it earns you money. And that money lets you buy upgrades. Wood platforms, conveyor belts, pulley systems, jump pads, splitters, wind protectors, heaters. In addition, you get automation upgrades like factories working faster, depots cost less, but also player upgrades, backpack size, grappling hook, longer rope, jacket, and cold resistance. Some of the ideas that we had. In addition, there's traversal in this. Climbing is slow until you upgrade your climbing ability. You can climb as long as you want. I didn't want the concept of stamina. I didn't think it'd be very fun if you fall off the mountain over and over again. So the big challenge for you is build out this network of platforms so you can easily traverse up and down the mountain. Now, obviously, if you try and reach the top before upgrading your character, the mountain will punish you. You can die from the cold. We were thinking maybe there's avalanches, lightning strikes, that sort of thing, but definitely the cold is going to be a big factor. In terms of automation, because it's a vertical automation game, which I don't think has been done before, the concept of gravity introduces a lot of new and interesting techniques and stuff for us to deal with. So imagine you can drop items 10 spaces before the item breaks. In addition, you can have splitters, which we're going to call grabbers, that will grab the falling items depending on what you want. Maybe they can grab every second, they'll grab every first one, you can control that. In addition, pulleys move up and down. Kind of think like Lord of the Rings, the dwarves moving items up and down with pulleys and carts and that sort of thing. That's the aesthetic we're kind of going for. Not super high tech, but a lot more dwarf-centric. In addition, biomes will introduce temperature, so factories will stop when it's too cold, so you'll have to build heaters to keep them working. It's a very binary thing, so if you have a heater that's running, your automation system runs. If it's off, it doesn't run. So you have to go and actually figure it out. But more valuable resources will let you do cool stuff, like maybe you can build out from the wall, maybe you can build to other parts of the mountain. Maybe there's two pillars next to each other and you can transport items across from each other. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the automation side of things. Think, for example, here's a crazy idea. There's a cannon that in the late game will look at all your factories within a range, and if it's missing an item in its inventory, it'll just automatically like shoot it into the factory itself. So you can get some cool play with the verticality of that. Now, in terms of visuals, one of the big things for us is to build epic cliff systems. So to give you an idea, this is a real world example of what your network traversal might look like, these big platforms that move up and down. As you try to reach the top, there's a story told through a walkie-talkie, and you can discover letters from other dwarves that have attempted to climb to the top, and you're going to find something at the top that has to do with the story. So now that you've heard the 3 pitches, I need your help with the vote. We've included in a link, probably up there and down in the comments, of a stack ranking tier list. In addition, you'll notice that Atrio is on there. Now, there's a very important thing that I need you to do. I want you to stack rank these ideas against Atrio. Now imagine you hadn't heard Atrio before, you've never played it, but you heard the pitch. Here's the quick pitch. You're playing an automation game where you are a bot that's sent to the surface in a world full of darkness, and your goal is to connect the stations. What's interesting about Atrio and the hook is you have to capture creatures and add them into your assembly line. For example, the pushbacks act as splitters and the tornadoes will pluck plants for you. Now, just imagine if you heard that idea versus all of the ideas that I just pitched. I want to know, do you want to play the games that I just pitched more than Atrio? Is it more exciting, less exciting? From a marketing standpoint, from a player standpoint, do you want to play one of these games more? And that's how I want you to rank them. You can put a bunch of them in S tier, that's okay. Or you can put them all in different tiers if you'd like. Thanks so much. We're excited to see the results.